Good morning and thank you so much for staying tuned to Citizen TV on this 11th day of April 2020. And it's time to take a look at some of the stories making headlines this morning, but also look at the political developments as we ride towards the 2022 general election. Just to indicate here that it's about 120 days to the general election. That gives you about 3 months, 29 days. Some crucial deadlines have passed. One of them was for the formation of coalition political parties. It passed on Saturday. Then it means that parties that did not morph into coalition political parties still have a chance to be a coalition or coalitions of parties, including Kenya Kwanza, who's one of the principals, Musalia Mudavadi, indicated on Saturday that they will be forming into a coalition of political parties whose deadline should be in another 29 days. So because it's supposed to be 3 months to the general election, I want to introduce the panelists here in studio. I have Didmas Baraza, Member of Parliament for Kimilili constituency. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, it's been quite a few weeks before without seeing you here.
Yes.
Great. We also have Njogu Barua,
yes.
Former Member of Parliament for Gishugu constituency in Kirinyaga County.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
What seat are you going for this time round?
I'm going for Gishugu constituency seat once again. Yeah.
On what party?
On Jubilee ticket.
Jubilee ticket.
And I'm excited about it.
Indeed, and we'll be talking about that later on. Then we have Wakili Edward Muriu. He is Secretary of Legal Affairs within UDA. Good morning.
Good morning, Sam.
Have you been here before?
Yes, a long time ago. I think you've forgotten me, but thanks for inviting me again. And also to meet also these great people.
Oh yeah, how many years ago?
Thank you very much. Then like about a year or so.
1 year.
But like about a year.
Okay, welcome back.
And thank you very much. Looking forward.
Right, and of course they will be joined by Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, who is the woman representative for Migori County. She's also going for the governor's seat in that county, hoping to go through the nominations later this week. She'll be joining us shortly, and as soon as she's about to do that, we'll be bringing her on board. I'm looking at the front pages of the two dailies, and the main story on the Standard is fresh running mate headache for Raila. Machakos governor offers to deputize Azimio leader days after Kalonzo said he wants the seat. Nakuru governor, that is, insists Mount Kenya will accept nothing less than DP slot. Of course, the running mate issue has been a running one for both formations, that is Kenya Kwanza and the Azimio movement. We don't know whether they have a solution yet, but they have to find one before the nominations are held sometime in the month of May. And then there is the official clearance by the IEBC. Then you'll see that on the same front page, Ruto criticizes hate speech list. Deputy President hits out at cohesion team as state agencies failed to tame hate messages on social media. Then on the front page of the Daily Nation, I'll trash Uhuru's punitive budget. Ukuru attorney's proposals will make life even more difficult. That's according to the Deputy President, who says that the 2022 budget would appear to make life more difficult. And should the legislators fail to alter the finance bill of 2022, the DP promised to dismember it if he wins the State House race in the August 9 general election. That's where I want us to begin. We'll get back to more stories later on. But first, let's listen to what the Deputy President said in regards to the budget 2022-2023 and in specific terms, the finance bill of 2022.
Budget imesomwa juzi. Hiyo budget inataka kuongeza bei ya maji. Sijui iongeze bei ya mkate. Sijui iongeze bei ya unga. Sijui iongeze bei ya nduthi. Sisi tunataka kuambia hiyo budget haiwezi kupita kwa bunge. Na ikipita kwa bunge miezi mitatu baadaye tutaibadilisha iwe ni budget ya mwananchi wa kawaida. Tunataka William Samoei Ruto akichukua ushukani agushe bei ya bodaboda ambayo imeongezwa. Ile maneno tuko naye ni kuchagua rais ambaye ataremusha bei ya vyakula.
We are going to bring a supplementary budget to bring down taxes. Ndio bei ya chakula, bei ya maisha ipande chini. Kwa sababu where we are the moment, bei ya sukari iko juu. Bei ya mafuta iko juu.
Hatutakubalia muendelee kuongezea wananchi bei ya unga, muongeze bei ya mkate, hata bei ya bodaboda mnataka kuongezea. Sisi kama Kenya Kwanza, sisi kama UDA Kitu ya kwanza tutafanya ni supplementary budget ambayo itapeleka maisha ya Wakenya, bei ya bidhaa ikuwe chini, ndio maisha ya Mkenya wa kawaida inawiri na ikuwe sawasawa. Kwa mapenzi ya Mungu, mwaka huu tunatengeneza serikali ambayo itabadilisha uchumi na iweke pesa kwa mfuko ya mwananchi wa kawaida. Neguo kana tiguo.
All right, that's the Deputy President. He was in Kiambu County, rather, yesterday, and he was saying all those things. And of course, this is coming after the Thursday presentation of the budget speech by CS Ukur Yatani. Let me begin with you, because you are the Member of Parliament here. When you listen to that budget of one CS Ukur Yatani, and then you look at, I don't know, I'm still stuck with Henry Rotich, and then you look at the finance bill. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to look at it. What for you really would inform the voices that we hear from the leaders of Kenya Kwanza?
What I want to say is that traditionally, or in a democracy, a budget comes to solve the problem that the citizens go through. Mm-hmm. And what Ukur Yatani ought to have done, which he failed, is to first scan through the problem that Kenyans are facing. And on top of the list is a high cost of living. So when you have a country where citizens are having it a problem to survive, we have high cost of living. You do a budget that will lessen that cost of living. And you target reduction of the prices of the very basic commodities that are majority of the Kenyan citizens will require or will want to survive, for them to survive. The cost of flour, the cost of sugar, the cost of fuel. But what you have seen also is a failure by Treasury to reduce some of unnecessary spending. They ought to have reduced the unnecessary budgets, things which did not require. For example, the billions that are being sent into the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of, in this case of security, these are the money that at times they are going to fund the campaigns of their projects, because I have been in the Committee of Administration and National Security before, and I know that the so-called, the line of where you put the money there, you call it other operating expenses, without necessarily expounding what are these other expenses for, is the money which people hide under the security that you cannot disclose what this money is going to do. It will be running, is ranging to about, they're usually about 8 billion. 8 billion. About 8 billion. Other operating expenses within the Ministry of Interior and the coordination of national government. So Rotich has failed to reduce...
Sorry, it's Yatani.
Yatani.
They confuse you.
Yeah, Yatani has failed to reduce such amount of money and focus on repaying debts. So what they do now is that they have a bloated budget of close to 3 trillion, and all they do now is to rob the Kenyans, including the poor ones, by increasing taxes to support their bloated budget. I am worried if this trend continues, this government. I'm happy that this government is moving away in the next 3 months. Otherwise, we will see a situation where they will even begin to tax fashion. Which hairstyle, the hairstyle you want to wear may have attracted some tax.
I asked a specific question. If you've had the advantage of looking at the budget or the finance bill, you can respond. And that is to do with what specific proposals are raising the cost of living, as alluded to by Deputy President and the other leaders you see there.
Basically, we are already in an oppressive tax regime. The tax regime kind of increases the cost of living. So where you have a bloated budget that can only be funded by taxing Kenyans more, you are basically being more punitive, you are basically making the cost of living unbearable, and you are driving Kenyans to a lane where nobody will accept. That's why we are saying that our priority number 1 is to first review this budget, either by bringing in a supplementary budget, if at all our efforts to shoot down this finance bill by doing proper amendments would be defeated, then we'll have to go the way of bringing in a supplementary budget.
I hear you, and I want to spread the question to this side, but let me just finish with the legislator here, because the budget talks of 3.3 trillion expenditure plan. It then talks about 2.4 trillion in revenues, but if it's the ordinary revenue that would talk about more of taxes and government income, it's about 2.14 trillion shillings. If you go ahead and review the finance bill and reduce those measures, then it means that you have less revenue. How will you manage once you win election to run government if you have to stick to what has been provided for?
We don't need more than 8 billion of other operating expenses. We don't need some of, when you open that budget, inside that budget, you will find that within the state departments where they have allocated billions of shillings, that money goes to the waste. We don't need that amount of money. You know, if you look at the amount of money that has been put in, for example, in education, the money which we call it infrastructural development funds, first audit how the previous monies were spent. These are the money that, the former prime minister, a particular virtual office was created for him in government. And that particular virtual office need to be funded.
Which one?
Raila Odinga, the former opposition leader, the way you see him, all his functions are similar to state functions. So they have simply, this man has been accorded some kind of state respect as if he's a state officer. So what he appears to be, let me finish first. He appears to usurp some powers similar to the prime minister or to the deputy president. So those powers comes with a cost. So where you get this money for is this money gets them from some state departments, the money that is used to fund things which are of no importance to this country. So that's why we are saying that we will open every vote line.
I hear you, but you still haven't answered my question. I'll come back for the answer. Raila Odinga's budget line, or rather where that money is coming from specifically, you can...
You know, I've told some, you know, there is something which my guys can assist me to, to debunk this one. You've been told that the more than 30 billion that Parliament approved as a subsidy for fuel, that money was misapplied. Where? It disappeared. This is part of the money where the government goes wrong to draw money to fund things that were never budgeted for.
I'll come back to you because you're also mistaking on the figures there. But Wakili Muriu, so yes, we have heard from the Deputy President and the other leaders looking at the finance bill.
Yeah.
Have you seen the specific provisions or proposals that would raise the cost of living? And I'm specific on that, cost of living, because they mentioned flour, they mentioned water.
Yes, thank you, Sam. And first of all, accept the greetings from the people of Katanga. That is also the home of the Royal Media, so they told me to say hi to you. Yeah, and going to the question, I want to say this. The budget, unfortunately, failed to live to the expectation of the people. It is not a realistic budget in this sense. It went straight to attack the people who are most and highly vulnerable. Number one, remember they increased the excise duty on the border from 13,000 excise duty to about 16,000. It also touched on water. It also touched on those other essential commodities. But I think the most important thing here is this: bearing where the economy is as of now. The budget itself, once again, has infringed on the Constitution in this sense. There's a proposal in the bill that whenever KRA has a dispute in the tribunal, there's a rule that anybody who has an issue must pay 50% of the amount demanded. That is ultra-vires to the Constitution. It is against the Constitution. The Constitution says that everybody must be accorded a fair trial. It is simply saying that if you have a case whereby you're supposed to serve 10 years in jail, you're supposed to serve 5 years first before the matter has been heard and determined. That is totally out of context. So my point here is very simple, that the budget has failed to address the specific needs of the people. We expected more subsidies. We expected the VAT on essential goods to be dropped, so at least living standards can be able to be afforded to. I'll tell you, even a rural community like Katanga, people are sleeping hungry because there is no money. People have the taxation is very high. From the people are sleeping hungry. They have no money at all because to afford a meal, it becomes like it's extremely has become extremely difficult. So just to answer your question, the budget failed to address the situation. And failed also to allocate the resources where there is highest return possible. We expected money to be boosted, put more where there is where we can be able to create more employment, because there's serious issues of unemployment for the youth, and that did not happen.
Okay, and Honorable Barua, have you had the opportunity to peruse the budget or the finance bill?
Thank you very much. And first of all, like my colleague, I'd like to pass my greetings to the people of Gishogo, who I'm hoping to represent in the next 4 months back to Parliament. The other thing I would like to say is that about the budget is that I have not looked at it in detail, the financial statement, because I just got this invite yesterday evening. I wish I'd got it earlier, and I've really given a thorough scrutiny.
Sure.
And made a very good reaction to the issues raised by my colleagues here. Secondly, I would like to say that the fact that I've not read it in detail does not mean that I cannot contribute. I also want to say that in my contribution, I'm not here to defend it or overly criticize it. I'm here to give it my own analytical thought so I can be useful to Kenyans.
Sure.
I've heard it in the media, the Deputy President saying about what he'll do if he became president. I've heard from my colleagues talking about excise duty and also 50% of paying 50% of the disputed taxes in it. So what I'd like to start with is that first of all, the issue of supplementary budget, which is being proposed by our Deputy President, His Excellency, is that budgets are presented to Parliament by the executive. Parliament does not make budget. What the Parliament does is to discuss the budget. So the only time the Deputy President and his team can give us a supplementary budget is only if they took power. That is after August 9. Before then, they cannot talk over making a supplementary budget because they have to get it from the executive, because the executive is the one running the show. It is for now. Secondly, just like you, I would like to ask, if they were to make a supplementary budget, that is the UDA Kenya Kwanza team, who I really respect also, how would it look like? These are campaign year. You criticize a budget, but at the same time, as a voter, I would like to see, if you had the chance, how would it look like? So what I would like the people criticizing the budget or the financial statement to act in speed, so that in the next few days, they give us a draft of what they would have liked in the budget, so that the Kenyans can be able to interrogate and make an informed decision. What is happening right now is that we are all looking for votes. And most politicians, most political formations are trying to look at the heart of Kenyans, where they can be touched more. So when you mentioned...
But from your experience,
yes,
both because you were in Parliament
yes, there was, yes,
the previous term, and you hope to go back next term. But from your experience, how possible is it to review taxes lower while looking at a budget that will have already been passed by the current Parliament? So you reduce the taxes, you bring a supplementary budget to reorganize the spending. How possible is it for a new government and a new regime to do that in the first few months?
I think it's actually a tall order, but most likely what they would do, if there is a reduction of taxation of one item, normally it goes with an increase of taxation in another area, because you don't want to leave a hole And like Baraza is saying, the government or the budget is supposed to serve the interests of the people. If, for example, the price of bread is high, or the price of another essential commodity is high, the government may find it necessary to review that by rolling the taxation on that. But if that one is done, it leaves a hole. Then there must be another equal or even more taxation in another item so that the government does not have a hole in its budget. The other thing is that the government, it has to be clear about this. Government generates its money from taxes. We cannot do without taxation, but we don't support over-taxation. So when you talk about the situation today, for example, we should also be cognizant of the fact that we have come from 2 years of COVID. And this COVID has actually devastated the economy, not just in Kenya, just across the globe. Even people in Gatanga, maybe they're not suffering because of this financial statement. They are suffering because of the effect of COVID. Because for 14, 18 months, Kenyans were not productive. Right. They are not working. So as you calculate this budget, as you say the cost of living is high, as you say that things are getting more difficult, let us first of all get to realize where you're coming from. Okay. Finally, I would like to say that the issue of interior, even when I was in Parliament, this was a line which was always fought in Parliament, people saying that this money is not accounted for, this money is too much. But I'm saying this, we cannot work without security. We cannot work without the intelligence. We cannot work without the functions of the interior being effective, because that's what actually enhances cohesion in this country. Okay. So the issue of taxation, even if Interior Ministry was given 8 billion in a budget of 3.3 trillion, to me, that is not really significant. What I would like to ask is the Minister of Interior to use the money which have been given for the purpose which is planned for. Okay.
Just before you do that, the Cabinet Secretary spoke about some of the measures that are contained in the finance bill will be seeking to increase the revenues by about 50 billion shillings. I just want to quickly look at some of them, because you mentioned a figure which is also not consistent with the bill that I've seen. The excess tax for motorcycles is being proposed to be raised from 12,185 to 13,403 shillings per unit. There's a proposal to delete the zero rating on, listen to this, supply of maize, corn flour, ordinary bread and cassava flour, wheat or muslin flour, and maize flour containing cassava flour by more than 10% in the weight. So that is being proposed to be, initially the current act talks about zero rating those products, but now there's a proposal to delete that. Then that would mean that we get back to the VAT being applied?
Yes, absolutely.
Like that? Yeah. Now, I understand that we now have Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, who is the Member of Parliament for Migori County. She's the woman representative there. Good morning, Dr. Pamela. And you're talking about some sentiments of the Deputy President and the Kenya Kwanza leaders yesterday, saying that they are dissatisfied with the budget 2022-2023 and also the finance bill of 2022, and they are proposing to come up with a supplementary budget should they win election in August. When I saw you speaking after the budget statement in Parliament last Thursday, but when you look at it, what specific proposals did you see that stand in the way of Kenyans and their happiness?
Thank you very much. This is Sammy, I suppose, because yes. I cannot see you. And good morning, Kenya, and good morning, my colleagues who are there.
Morning.
As you said, yes, I made some observation on that statement, and I thought what I did not understand very well was why we had some big allocation for COVID vaccination. And I thought, well, much as there could be still some allocation to have the vaccine available in the country, because not everybody really has been vaccinated. But I thought we reached a level where the government had said we have developed a herd immunity, And therefore, the few that are not yet vaccinated may not deserve that amount. I can't still remember the exact figure it was now, because I don't have that whole document so that I could make references. But I thought this money could have either been moved, some of it, to, say, healthcare or general healthcare, like the universal healthcare, to me, is more of a serious need, especially in our rural setups. People don't have money, but they get sick, and treating them. Like in my area, we always have, every morning at your door, these long queues of people who are looking for money to go to hospital. So I thought it is important that we should actually help these people to get to hospital and get treated. Or apart from that, I also spoke about the concept of trying to create more initiatives and making it possible for the youth to be meaningfully engaged in some work, either initiated by themselves or employed by somebody else to make them also get their living. And this would even go ahead and reduce the so-called insecurity that all of us are concerned about. So I think I argued in that line. Okay. However, the sentiments of the deputy president and the issue of criticism is not bad, but I think we need to have constructive criticism, and which provides viable and workable and practical alternatives that even if he was the one to implement it, like he's claiming, it would be real. A colleague of mine has commented and said, now that people are campaigning, it is also good to know that Kenyans should not be led to some just cheap, populist kind of approach to looking at issues, because the truth is, Kenya has been suffering, and like the rest of the world, allegedly COVID issues affected business. And with this, there is low returns in every form of business world over. Okay. So it is also good to keep that at the back of our mind. But what I want to say is the issue of raising those exercise duties and what have you, I think the truth is, and everyone knows this, taxation should not be the major way of raising funding that can actually run a country. I think much as we may need to review those taxes, which I think is possible, having in Parliament, I think I've seen these finance policies reviewed, and this very deputy president, when one of his lieutenants, Ichungwa, was in charge of the finance docket, we saw them introduce these taxations that they are now claiming about, especially the taxation on the petroleum products, which some of us had said would actually affect all these prices that we are now crying about now.
Dr. Pamela Odhiambo, I will have to stop you there so that we can carry on with the rest of the panelists. But that question of petroleum products...
allow me to say this, that what I think in Kenya, whoever is coming to take this government must be able to open doors for investment that can bring new revenue to our country.
Okay,
and just depending on taxation alone, and even taxing the workers and all that, will never raise enough money for a country to run smoothly. So I'm only saying that whoever is criticizing, we should be able to provide viable, practical alternatives that can actually make sure that there is money, extra money, to make these taxes go down so that we can all be comfortable running.
Dr. Pamela, I hear you, but I remember that when the question of VAT on fuel was introduced in Parliament, it had been opposed at first, but then there was consensus building, including members from your political party that settled at 8% of VAT. I want us to take a short break, but Honorable Baraza, you're a parliamentarian. This budget policy statement was presented to Parliament way last year. You had an opportunity alongside your colleagues to contribute and oppose or review or make suggestions to it. Why didn't you? Or did you and they weren't listened to?
We have always suggested amendments, but the so-called handshake brothers will marshal the numbers, buy a few members of parliament to have their way. And in line of what Dr. Pamela Odhiambo has just said, we have been advising this government that all they need to do is to widen the tax base to create more revenue. But the same government has continued to monopolize businesses in the sectors where majority of the Kenyans can afford, and therefore many Kenyan young entrepreneurs being knocked out of business. The environment of doing business is not conducive. We've had many institutions close shop in Kenya to go and open in neighboring countries. So when you want to lessen the taxes on the Kenyans, is you have to increase the tax base, ensure you have very many Kenyans are doing business, and they're able to contribute to the revenue that this country needs. What is happening now is that the Kenya's economy is a developing economy. It's not a developed economy as yet. So in a developing economy, you tax Kenyans to provide the very basic human needs: food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, and education. This budget that was just read a few days ago, it's a budget that funds luxury. It's not a budget that goes to fund the very many basic needs that the Kenyans require. As we speak now, we have got very many Kenyans who don't have access to clean water. We have very many Kenyans who don't have a classroom. The Teacher Service Commission has been on record saying that they do not have enough teachers to teach the Kenyan students. So if you carry out an audit of this budget, this is a budget that's largely going to fund luxury.
You are supposed to do on behalf of Kenyans.
It's my responsibility, and I have always done. We have always proposed hustler-friendly amendments, amendments that will go to serve the people who live below the bottom of the pyramid, but the so-called handshake brothers, those who are in power, those who are powerful, they will connive to shoot them down.
It's easy to say that, but what specific amendments did you move, either in the committee or on the floor of the House, for this specific budget policy statement?
Let me tell you, like you said before, it was not correct. There is no budget that the Parliament has approved. What was read, that was a budget speech. Now we await the tabling and the passage of all of the finance bill, which largely suggests how government is going to get the money to run their budget, but there is no budget that was approved. That was a budget speech.
No, Honorable Brother, you're evading my question. I'm asking what contribution you may have made to the committees, because the committees were dealing with the budget policy statement. True or not? I
am not a member of the budget committee. I am not a member of let me tell you. No. Let me tell you. Let me educate you a little bit.
You're not a member of any committee?
I'm a member of a catering committee which doesn't deal with any budget. You know, when we were whipped. But let me tell you something, listen, my friend.
Yes.
Parliament has not approved any budget.
No, that is true. No one has said that it has approved.
The only thing we approved was budget policy statements.
Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about more, including what the National Cohesion Integration Commission has been saying about some terms that would appear to be part of hate speech in this country.